Good evening. Welcome to the regular twice monthly meeting of Westminster's Mayor and Common Council. Please note that our meetings, although open to the public here at City Hall, will continue to be available and streamed live on the city's Facebook page, as well as the Community Media Center channel and website. Now we'll begin as we do every meeting with the pledge to the flag, followed by a moment of silence. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. As a courtesy to everybody, please take a moment to silence your cell phones or any other electronic devices you may have with you that might ring or beep or otherwise make some sound during the meeting. Thank you. Copies of tonight's agenda and the entire information packet that the council will be using are available online on the city's website. In addition, for those who would like to have a copy, we have agendas of tonight's meeting up here in the front. Let's see. First, we'll consider the approval of the minutes. We have minutes from the meeting of the Mayor and Council on October 25th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. President,
Mr. Hoff.
I'll second.
Or motion by Mr. Hoff and a second by Mr. Dayhoff.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have it and the ayes have it. And the minutes are approved. We have a presentation tonight. Recently, Mr. Andrew Gray of our planning staff made a presentation to the Maryland Municipal League, and some of our members were there to hear it and were so impressed by it that they thought it was worth having all of us here. So we're pleased to have Mr. Gray here with us tonight to share that presentation. So Mr. Gray,
thank you.
The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bring up the slideshow. Dave or Mr. Davidson, I'm not sure if we can get that. Get that up on the share your screen. I am. Oh, wait a minute. I apologize. There we go. All right. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the Common Council. Thank you for having me today. As the President Pecoraro mentioned, I presented in front of the Maryland Municipal League's Fall Conference's presentation. I would like to also bring this.
I'm sorry, Mr. Gray, you still can't see it.
Sure, yeah. Getting close.
Sorry about that.
Nothing better than technical issues, right?
I am sharing it like I would with Planning Commission.
Mhm. Well, Mr. Gray's getting that sorted out. Maybe we should move on, and as soon as he's ready, we'll go back in his presentation. First of all, we have one item on the consent calendar this evening. May I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion to approve this.
Second.
Calendar.
There's been a motion by Ms. Gilbert and a second by Mr. Cavacci to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have it, and the ayes have it, and the consent calendar is approved. Madam Mayor, I don't know if you're ready to, if you're interested in making any kind of report tonight, if your voice will hold up long enough.
Just as I thought it was, I'm don't have much. I'm just going to keep it very short. The only thing really that I just wanted to let individuals know is that I've been working with Aaron Benevito, who is one of the deans at Mcdaniel College, to put together some activities for first-year students during their January term. So this year they have a mandatory Jan term for all first-year students on McDaniel's campus. And so they will be on campus for 4 weeks in January. And January is sort of the time of the city where we're a little quiet. We've just come out of the holidays. We're about ready to launch into the budget season. And so we're planning on possibly 2 sort of not necessarily city events, but events which I will play a role in to help connect students to the city and businesses in the city. So we sort of have a captive audience for 4 weeks while they're there on campus. And so I thought that we should take advantage of that. And that's all I have then for tonight.
Great, sounds like a great opportunity. Thank you,
Yep.
Mayor Becker. Mr. Bear, you ready now?
Not quite yet,
Not quite?
Mr.
Yeah,
President.
okay, very good. We'll keep rolling. You let us know when you're ready. We'll begin with reports from the standing committees. For the Arts Council Liaison, Mr. Dayhoff.
Thank you, Mr. President. There'll be no report this meeting. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Mr. Hoff, Economic and Community Development Committee.
Yes, we had a meeting on November the 2nd. Just to kind of give you a brief overview of that meeting, we discussed some amendments to the Housing Authority Administrative Plan, which I believe will be coming to council at a future date. Mainly just some technical changes that we needed to make to stay in compliance with the federal government. Then also we had some discussions regarding certain businesses that are looking to potentially relocate to town, but there are technical issues with that their use isn't allowed in the zoning area that, or the zoning district that they're in. Obviously, we would not make a zoning change if we didn't think it would be a good idea, and we would not make it just for a specific business. But a lot of times what will happen in a case like this is a business will bring something to our attention where it really just is an oversight that it isn't in the zoning code. So we have a couple cases like that that we're going to be working on, and eventually will be coming forward to council as well. Those were the main, kind of the main takeaways from that particular meeting.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoff. On behalf of the Finance Committee, I'll just report that we have not met since the last council meeting, but you do have before you this evening the budget amendment that was prepared by the city administrator and recommended to us by the mayor, and the Finance Committee recommended approval, and we'll have more chance to discuss that shortly. Personnel Committee, Ms. Gilbert.
Nothing to report tonight.
All right, thank you. Mr. Kavachi, Public Safety Committee.
Couple of brief things, Mr. President. I don't want to steal too much of the chief's thunder, but there's a couple quick items that he may elaborate a little bit more on. One, we have an additional group of officers that are going to be going to the crisis intervention training program. We've definitely been out in front as a department related to that kind of training. I think statewide, we probably percentage-wise are maybe number one, or certainly have been consistently at the very top in terms of having our officers trained. And without getting into too much detail, this is where they learn how to deal with people in crisis, but not necessarily from a purely law enforcement perspective. It's about helping people. And we've gotten tremendous feedback from citizens whose loved ones or friends have been in crisis. Our officers have responded to that because it's usually police officers are the ones that always get called to deal with it. And in numerous circumstances, I've had folks come to me and talk about how our police officers have handled these situations with compassion and caring and helping get these folks to the resources they need. And part of the way that happens is this training that the chief has implemented and pushed all of our officers to go through. When I say push, I don't know that you have to make them, but has made that happen. And it's really important and critical, especially in today's day and age, because it's a different type of policing that we do. And I commend the chief and his staff for doing that. They're spending a little time looking into some nuisance complaints related to the city parks. Chief, I don't know if you're going to elaborate on that, but that's a good thing. I know we've had a few of those recently. And then lastly, I'd like to commend Captain Nikki Hewer. She taught a block of instruction at the FBI National Academy. And the lead instructor for the FBI was so impressed with the instruction that she gave. He actually approached her about that session and, wanted to know more about it, I guess. And again, Chief, I don't know if you're going to mention that, but kudos to her. That's quite a feather in her cap to be recognized at that level by the FBI lead instructor at their National Academy about a block of instruction that she gave. So that's pretty awesome. That's all I have for public safety, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kavachi. Anything on Public Works?
So one brief thing on Public Works, I just wanted to compliment our Public Works Director, Mr. Glass. We had an opportunity, as you guys are well aware, because you were all there. Actually, at Councilman Dayhoff, I don't think you were, but I know you were in spirit. We had the delegation in for dinner and a meeting just to go through some things. And the Director of Public Works, Mr. Glass, made a presentation to them that I think they were impressed with. And I just wanted to compliment him on a job really well done. It was related to our pure water program, the Westminster Pure Water Program, that is going exceptionally well. And I think the delegation was quite impressed. They made numerous comments throughout the discussion about how both impressed they were and how they didn't realize we were as far along as we are and how cutting edge that whole thing is. So great work, and thank you for a job well done. That's it, Mr. President.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Kavachi. And although it's not your committee, I'll just mention that it was a good evening, and we did have a great presentation led by our city administrator. And Ms. Gruber participated as well and did a very thorough presentation on what's going on in Wakefield Valley and the help the state can give us on that as well. So it's a good evening, and we're glad that we were able to do that with them. Mr. Dale, Recreation and Parks.
We still need to have a meeting. The holdup's been me. My schedule's been a little difficult recently, but we're looking forward to having a meeting soon. We have some matters pertaining to the pool coming up later on in the meeting, and I think I'll leave the rest of that presentation for Ms. Gruber. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Dayhoff, and nothing from me for the Technology Committee. So it looks as if the technology, speaking of technology, may be worked out for the presentation.
Nice segue, Mr.
Thank you.
President.
Thank you very much. I do that when I can. And so we'll go ahead, Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. President. And if I may, Mr. Davidson, because there's just something next. Next, okay. So next. And next. All right. Thank you, Mr. President, Madam Mayor, and Common Council members. Just wanted, this was, as I mentioned before, my presentation in front of the Maryland Municipal League Fall Conference. This also was part of my master's thesis for geography and environmental planning. I graduated back in, as you all know, 2019. I'm glad I can bring this in front of you all. Next. So just a real quick introduction, since this body is very familiar with Westminster. Over 18,000 residents, and the big thing that I'll come back to for urban heat island mitigation, the unique shape of the city, built from annexations from the original city survey in 1869. The city evolved over time, and that unique form, it'll be mentioned at the end, is with implementing urban heat island policies. That comes into a little bit of a challenge, because then we have the coordination with, and we do have a good relationship with the county. Next. So for research and education, these maps were gathered over the summer from Dr. Carter Wang in the Department of Geography and Environmental Planning at Towson University. Also for my master's thesis, we received land surface temperature maps, as will be shown in the following slides. But I just wanted to take this slide to just give a little bit of brief background. Not only for this research were land surface temperature maps collected, but also I went out and gathered over 200 air surface temperature, or sorry, yes, air temperature measurements through the summer of 2016 around the city of Westminster, and one control out on Route 482 between Hampstead and Westminster. With that, the research provided that there is a surface urban heat island, but not a canopy urban heat island effect. There are micro urban heat islands in our more commercialized areas, but not the canopy layer heat island. Also, one of the fascinating things was when it was a cloudy, rainy day, there was, I also, right in the middle of town on Locust Lane and Main Street, actually observed an urban oasis effect, meaning that the opposite of urban heat island, the urbanized land surfaces are cooler than the surrounding area. And for instance, Las Vegas, Nevada, because there's arid climate, and I should say Las Vegas compared to Baltimore, because the areas around Baltimore have more vegetation compared to Las Vegas, where the land is warmer and the urban area in the middle is cooler. You have the fountains and the casinos and all. So I did experience my findings showed an urban oasis effect. Next. So in 1985, as you can see, there was major part that the major land surface temperature was found in downtown Westminster and over by the 140 Village Shopping Center. Next, and in 1994, as the city began to become more developed, urbanized, you can see the hotter surfaces off of Engler Road, and also up towards the airport and down by Wakefield Valley. Next. Then in 2007, over by Market Street, Lowe's, Home Depot, that area over there, you can see that evolving with the corresponding land cover underneath that shows the correlation between land surface temperature and land cover. And then next, then in 2017, it's sort of interesting because over near Wakefield has actually cooled a little. So I'm thinking the street trees that have grown up actually are helping cool the area. Also, another interesting point, with looking at different land surfaces, for instance, Lowe's to Home Depot. Lowe's has a white roof, Home Depot has a darker roof. So with one of the things that when surfaces heat up, the albedo. So there is a higher albedo, meaning the reflectancy of the surface. So a lower albedo, or sorry, a higher albedo would correspond to lower surface temperature, what was exhibited throughout Westminster. There was two areas that did not show that. Number one was outside the city at the Ag Center. And the Ag Center's parking lot, which you all know is mostly grass, that actually was hot. And the reason I'm thinking that is because the soil moisture content and the lower grass had less evapotranspiration. So with that lower, almost dirt, and a higher land surface temperature. And one of the other things besides the soil moisture content, the albedo, and the vegetative cover that can affect land surface temperature is the composition. How much material heat capacity can a surface absorb? And I'm trying to think, there was one, apologize, I'm going off a couple of years memory here. There was one location that was it was out on Bennett Surf Road. The lighter roof was warmer, and I think that had to deal with the material and also Mcdaniel College's stadium
field. I am assuming that is an artificial field because it was a higher temperature as compared to if it was a grass temperature, a natural surface, it would be cooler.
I had a cleat melt playing lacrosse. When I played men's lacrosse on the field at Mcdaniel, one of my cleats fell apart and the glue came off because it was so hot. Artificial turf fields are incredibly hot.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Sorry.
that.
Yeah.
Mr. Gray, before you leave this.
Yes.
slide, can you tell us what we're looking at? Obviously, the maps on the top show the heat.
Mhm.
What do the maps on the bottom represent?
That is the normalized difference vegetation index. So that's what the land cover is actually. The greener is the more vegetative, and the redder is the more urbanized. So the more urbanized should correlate to the hotter surface temperature on the upper photos, and the greener, the cooler on the upper photos. Well, good, thank you. Great question, Mr. President.
Thank you.
So as your canopy, your tree canopy matures, that makes it more green, basically.
Correct. Yes, Councilman Huff. Next. These aerial photos were taken this summer when Professor Wang came to Towson and flew his 6 sensor multispectral drone up and down Main Street. Next. Nope, next. So as you can see, the areas on the top, the large tree in the left picture correlates to the cooler temperature in the on the top in the middle photograph, and also down by Main Street and 27 on the bottom. Next. Next. Then with the normalized difference vegetation index, you can see how that tree more precisely correlates between the cooler surface to the vegetation. Next. Next. And with this as well, where the tree is by the library, cooler surface, the tree down, or the grass lot on the bottom corresponds to the cooler temperature. Next. Then to the normalized difference vegetation index that shows that vegetative surface. Next. And then not to forget the large lot, undeveloped lot on the bottom of the screen that popped out.
Where is that picture? That's obviously Main Street.
That is Main Street.
And what's the lot?
The lot would be, so the building, let's see, the building across from the bottom circle is the post office, the old post office. So I would think that would be,
The parking lot beside the old post office?
yes, it's, trying to
I'm just curious.
remember where that,
Yeah, there's a building or two, and then there is a lot there. There is an undeveloped lot
we
to
want.
the right of that building.
Okay,
buildings we
all right. To scale, it was really difficult to figure out where that lot was.
but it's the buildings we want. But it's impressive to show what that actual vacant lot does to the land surface temperature on Main Street. Next. So with reviewing some of the things, how could we put into city law and policy mitigative measures to address the urban heat island? So there's 3 main things that came to mind: the landscape manual, the city zoning ordinance, and the development design preference manual. The city zoning ordinance is, as you know, that is the law and it has to be followed. Or you could, an applicant for certain things could seek a variance to the Board of Zoning Appeals. If they can prove hardship. But in my thinking, things that, or measures that are not as stringent should be in that zoning ordinance. So staff and the applicant can sort of agree and negotiate on some of the policies.
So for instance, the landscape manual. The landscape manual can be modified by the planning director. So for some of the mitigation measures, to find these, I went through the largest municipalities in Maryland, their comprehensive plans to find information on this, and also American Planning Association, their best comprehensive plans. And for landscape manual, the total lot tree canopy coverage of 40%, to add that, specify the locations of plantings that would help decrease energy consumption in both winter and summer months for both residential and commercial development. And new developments report the existing and proposed tree canopy coverage and require such new development to exceed or meet current conditions. And then increasing the planting unit credit for relocating existing vegetation on site and provide an even higher credit for retaining existing mature trees on site without relocation. Because when you pull the trees up, there's also carbon under the trees that you sort of release that carbon back into the air. The development design preference manual that can be modified by the Planning and Zoning Commission to include green roofs in conjunction with white roofs. So projects have an alternative in meeting the 40% tree canopy coverage, the higher albedo, which is a reflectivity of the surface for all residential and commercial projects, require the total area of soil disturbance and impervious surface area be indicated. So that's one of the top things when people review. So how much are we really disturbing the soil? And then for the city zoning ordinance, street trees on all new residential and commercial streets and white roofs on all large industrial and commercial buildings. I just wanted to make note that where to plant a tree, and as Councilman Dayhoff from doing the landscape manual, you know this. It's important where to plant to properly plant a tree or trees. For instance, in the winter, if you plant evergreen trees on the north side of the house, you're protecting the house from the cold winter winds. And then putting the deciduous trees on the southern portion of the house, in the winter, the trees lose their leaves and the sunlight comes in to heat the house. And then in the summer, it doesn't really matter for the north, but for the south, the deciduous trees block the sun, the warm summer sun, from hitting the house. And also, just to conclude, talking about some with the urban heat island effect. In the winter, anthropogenic heat is more pronounced than regular heat from the sun. For instance, in Fairbanks, Alaska, in the winter, you can almost, well, there is no influence from the sun, but the urban heat island effect is more pronounced in Fairbanks in the winter than any other place because it's all waste heat from homes, heating cars, unlike in the lower latitudes where the anthropogenic heat isn't as intense, but the heat from the sun is more pronounced in heating the urbanized surfaces. So that is my presentation. Thank you, Mr. President, Madam Mayor, and Common Council members, and Administrator Imholz. Thank you for letting me present this in front of you today. If you have any questions, I am here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Appreciate it very much, and glad that we got to see a presentation that our colleagues from across the state got to see at the Municipal League Conference. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Gray?
Mr. President.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I don't necessarily have a question, but I would like to thank Mr. Gray for presenting, for giving this presentation to the council this evening. And just to go off my comments from our prior presentation we had relating to the Durbin House, when I was very excited to have terms like Miocene and last glacial maximum and the younger Dryas. Once again, it warms my scientist heart to hear words like albedo and anthropogenic and canopy cover and those sorts of terms as well presented. And so, Mr. Gray, this would be a great presentation for my AP Environmental Science class in the spring semester, so I'll be in touch.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. All right, thank you.
Because it will also keep me from teaching a class, so you can come in and do it.
I'm gonna say, it sounds like you're gonna get Dr. Becker out of how you plan a lesson. That's great. Always glad to save the mayor some time. And I was pleased that I actually knew some of those words you were talking about tonight, Dr. Becker, unlike the last time. So I guess, going forward, for us, these are things for us to be considering as we, of course, we're already a tree city. So, having a tree canopy is important to us. Downtown trees, and I'm sorry, our downtown isn't a little cooler, but maybe once we hit upon the right trees, we want to grow downtown, we'll be able to do a better job with that and get those, get the downtown a little cooler in the warm weather. But also, I think it's worth looking as we go forward to, as we look at the landscaping manual, also at the building codes, to think about, encouraging. I don't know if we want to require people to do white roofs, but certainly encouraging it might not be a bad thing. These are all things for us to be thinking about. Mr. Hoff.
Mr. President, I was just going to mention, kind of going down the road you were starting to go down, is that I do think it's very interesting and something that, is going to become more and more important as time goes on, and things that we should consider when we're looking at, redevelopment projects, other planning and zoning issues, because I think all of it ties together. We already do an exceptional job with having as much trees as we do, but it doesn't mean we can't do more. And Mr. Glass, it makes me think about the conversation we had after today's meeting about some of the idea of cutting down all the trees at fronts and replanting them. That's probably not a really good idea from this kind of standpoint as well. Some of the business owners were suggesting that we, redo the trees along Main Street. But when you look at this, I think we need to be very careful how we would implement that from a heat standpoint as well, because some of our existing trees do provide some really good canopy cover.
And gradually is the answer to that. All right. Any other questions for
Mr. President?
Mr. Dayhoff?
Yeah, the Emmitsburg model is pretty famous because the Emmitsburg's Main Street was done before Westminster's Main Street was done. And we had quite a challenge with SHA when they redid Main Street because they wanted to cut all the trees down. And the Emmitsburg model was quite famous. I know I emphasized it in a couple of public hearings, but I'm really particularly happy. It also warmed my horticulturist heart to hear a number of the terms. And I participated in writing the landscape manual, and was it adopted in the 80s?
Was it 93?
But it's probably a good opportunity to take a good look at it because some of the tree selections have changed. The Zelkovas have a disease now, and also the honey locusts have a disease. And I remember when I was with an appointed position with DNR, we took a really good look at street trees, what was appropriate and what was not appropriate. And now is a really good a couple of conversations with some arborist friends. If you could bring forward some of those changes in the landscape manual, I think it's only appropriate. But as far as climate changes is concerned, I think everybody wants to suggest that maybe climate change is somebody else's responsibility. But Mr. President, I think it's our responsibility. I think it's everybody's responsibility. And if there's anything that we as a municipality can do to address climate change, I think we really need to do it. And that would include maybe taking a good look at our tree replacement budget, our tree budget. And I loved your presentation.
Thank you.
And then also, Mr. President, maybe we could ponder asking Mr. Gray if he would. I loved his master's thesis. I've read it several times. As I shared with him today, I used to edit master thesis, but I loved it. I read it several times. Maybe if you could consider asking Mr. Gray if he would consider sharing his master thesis with the elected officials. I think they would all find it really compelling reading.
Sure.
I'm excited.
We can see that.
Yeah, I'm excited. This is just great stuff.
All right.
Thank you.
It is terrific. Mr. Gray, thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. You ready? We'll move on with the rest of the agenda. Next item up is council comments. This is the opportunity for council members to make comments on any item that is either on the agenda or anything else of concern to them. that wasn't in the committee reports. Mr. Dayhoff.
Thank you, Mr. President. And then a great segue is one of the other things that's on my list that I've been pecking at slowly but surely with Ms. Emholtz was the Sustainable Maryland Initiative. And that's on the agenda later, and I'm really happy about that. Couple of calendar items. This Thursday, November the 11th, the American Legion will host this traditional Veterans Day ceremony at 4:00 at the Westminster Family Center. That's an important ceremony, and maybe folks can make some room in their calendar to attend. And we're also really looking forward to the Miracle on Main Street and the tree lighting. And if I'm not mistaken, Mr. President, we have Ms. Haggerty here with us this evening. Maybe she can confirm that the Winter's Farmers Market starts the Saturday after Thanksgiving.
We actually start on November 26th, Friday, November 26th from
Okay.
9 to 3, and then every Saturday, Sunday through December 19th from 9 to 1 for the holiday market.
Mr. President, I did not rehearse that. But that's really good stuff. Mr. President, we also back in June and July, I had brought up that I would like to have an update on the enhanced biological nutrient removal project at the wastewater treatment plant. Back in July, we were going to put it on the docket on September the 27th, and that got postponed. Mr. President, if you would consider adding that to our agenda at some point in time, maybe perhaps Ms. Emholtz would consider asking Mr. Glass to provide us with an update.
Sure, we'll work with staff for that. I thought that the tour had perhaps obviated the need for that, but we'll circle back with staff and get something scheduled.
Well, I guess my position with my other hat on is that we're spending $78 million. And I think that we should probably have an update as to the progress of that project and how that's going. Some time ago, I brought up the beekeeping ordinance, and Mr. Huff, I've been meaning to speak with you about that. Maybe we could take a good look at that. I look to you as the zoning maven on council, and maybe we could take another look at that. And then you brought up the housing authority, and I immediately thought of property maintenance. We still have lots of property maintenance issues in town. And I would really, really look forward to seeing some updates, some more tools in our toolbox to address some of the property maintenance issues.
I can assure you both those items are definitely on our list, but
Yes, sir. Good.
so
I like it.
it's going to take a little time to because we have there's a lot of things on that list.
Well, I mean, zoning was brought up. I mean, zoning was adopted, November 5th, 1979. And I guess it's really a good opportunity to, it's just stuff piled on top of stuff. And it'd be really a good chance to take a good look at that. I think that's all, Mr. President. Thank you very much for the time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dayhoff. Ms. Gilbert.
I'm going to be quite a bit more abbreviated than my colleague.
Thank you.
Was that a thank you?
I just wanted to thank Ms. Imholz for organizing our meeting this past Thursday with the delegates. And I wanted to thank our directors, Mr. Glass and Ms. Gruber. They did a great job. They had a great presentation. I know Councilman Kovaci already commented on that, but I'll reiterate just a touch. And then I also wanted to remind, it was in writing, I didn't know Councilman Dayhoff was going to take my thunder on that one, but just remind everyone of the farmer's market is continuing until November 20th. And then we will be switching over to Saturday and Sunday from 9 to 1 from Black Friday until Christmas. It will be located at the 29 East Main Street and West Main Street. Thank you. And then there will be a food drive the December 4th and 5th. And everything collected from the food drive will benefit Carroll County Food Sunday. So I just wanted the public to be aware of that. That is all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Mr. Kovaci.
Just wanted to tag along what Councilwoman Gilbert said in terms of thanking staff for that meeting with the delegation. I'd also like to thank Councilman Huff. He was really the impetus behind that.
Here, here.
He's the one who kind of saw the value in, taking advantage of some of the opportunities maybe for some funding that we could get our hands on through the state. And frankly, we haven't done that as well as we probably should have in the past. And I'd just like to thank him for that publicly, because it really was him that drove it. And I'm grateful for it, I'm sure, as we all are. That's it, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kavachi. Mr. Hoff.
Mr. Kavachi, I really appreciate that. And it was a great event, and that within later that evening or the next morning, I had already gotten some feedback from Senator Reedy and Delegate Krebs and Shoemaker. So I think the meeting went very well, and I'm hopeful that we will see some benefit out of those meetings or that meeting, as well as continuing to meet in the future. And I thought the staff did a terrific job with the presentations. And I was unaware that we were going to address water reuse, but when we did, I was very excited because I thought that was really smart. So kudos to staff for adding that on. And then the only other comment I wanted to make is just appreciation to our new city administrator. I have been working with her over the past 2 months. For me being new here, the newest member, just trying to get up to speed. I have a lot of things I want to accomplish, and just trying to pace ourselves, whether that be through Economic and Community Development Committee or otherwise, just trying to get some things accomplished in the long run. I really appreciate working with her towards reaching some of those goals over the coming months and years. So kudos to her.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hoff. I have nothing to add except that I share all the thanks that were expressed by my colleagues. I think, as always, staff has been kicking it for the past couple of weeks since the last meeting, and that's what we like to see. So good job by everybody.
Mr. President.
Didn't you have enough time yet?
Well, I had something that I was going to hand to the mayor, but
That's gonna be hard.
it's going to be pretty hard to hand to the mayor Mayor Becker would probably maybe able to add, but the McDaniel College women's soccer team, it was announced at the NCAA tournament selection event on Monday, November the 9th, that McDaniel will host Harrisburg Saturday after winning the Centennial Conference Championship. And we're going to be looking forward to supporting the soccer team. And if I may, Mr. President, Mr. Huff, did you want to mention the meeting today? I thought it was an excellent meeting. You're the economic developer.
Well, I imagine the city administrator might be mentioning.
might
I don't
be-
want to
that
steal.
might be
I don't want to
Mr.
steal her thunder on that.
That
But
might be-
I will piggyback when she addresses that. But I thought it went very well.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. Council comments turning into Facebook posts.
Sorry, it just accumulated.
We have, under bids tonight, we have one item. And for that, I think I'm going to start with Ms. Imhoff. And that is the bid we received for the pool project.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to start us off briefly and then we'll turn it over to the Recreation and Parks Department. The pool, as you know, has been around since 1984. And while we have done some minor maintenance to it, it's time to renovate the pool. There are a variety of problems that are occurring right now, mainly that we're leaking water, and we're losing water in that pool, and we can't sustain that. So in 2019, we had a consultant put together a report, which is included in the packet tonight, outlining how to move forward. We bid that project this summer. We had what we thought was not enough bidders. So we knocked on some doors and asked some people to look at it and to bid it again. The bids that is in front of you right now is the lowest and most responsible bidder. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Gruber, and she's going to read the memo for you. I imagine there may be a lot of questions for this. We're happy to take those questions for you and help guide that discussion. Ms. Gruber?
Yes, good evening. As Ms. Impulse indicated, in fiscal year 19, the city undertook a facility audit of the Westminster Municipal Pool Complex. Objectives of that audit included an assessment of future maintenance needs for financial planning purposes and the identification of potential enhancements to the complex. Findings from the audit were presented to the mayor and common council on August 26, 2019. As a result of those findings, it was determined that the main swimming pool appears to have some major structural issues resulting in leaks. Despite seasonal attempts to repair cracks and leaks, there are many open cracks that occur in the same locations every pool season, creating active leaks and massive water loss. As a result of the structural issues and general aging of the pool, the finishes such as coping tile and plaster all need replacement. Additionally, the surrounding decks have sunken and heaved over time, producing an inconsistent deck surface plagued with cracks, trip hazards, and areas that do not drain properly. An upgrade to the main pool's plumbing and filtration equipment will need to occur concurrently. The existing filtration system will not be able to be adapted to the newly renovated pool design. Larger equipment will need to be installed to adequately filter and sanitize water from the main pool, rendering the current filtration room too small to accommodate the modernized water sanitation equipment. The fiscal year 2021 capital projects budget includes $1,186,800 in funding for renovations to the Westminster Municipal Pool. Those renovations include structural repair of the main pool, deck replacement, new plumbing and filtration equipment, and a new adequately sized filtration building that would also house 2 fully ADA compliant family and gender neutral changing rooms with restrooms. Initial cost estimates provided by the pool audit indicated that $1,186,800 would be adequate funding to repair the main pool and to install new plumbing and filtration equipment, along with the building to house the new filtration equipment, as well as the changing and restroom facilities. The project was placed out to bid initially in June 2021. We received only one bid response, and that bid response was well over budget. Keller Brothers Incorporated submitted a bid totaling $3,282,949,000. When we received this response, the project was discussed among staff. We minimally revised and placed the project back out to bid in August 2021. The revised bid allowed for a longer bid response time and an increased amount of time for contract completion. The second bid response did not produce an exceedingly favorable outcome either. We had 2 respondents this time. Keller Brothers Incorporated submitted a bid response again, as well as MCN Build Incorporated. Keller Brothers' response was $3,569,739, and MCM came in at $4,491,537. Keller Brothers Incorporated from Mount Airy, Maryland submitted the low bid. This figure is reflective of the bid amount, including the base bid and 2 add alternates. Using the numbers provided by Keller Brothers, 3 separate alternatives may be considered. Alternative 1 is the base bid in the amount of $2,259,039, includes all planning and design, construction of the main swimming pool with all appurtenances, and construction of a filtration restroom building. Alternative 2 includes the base bid with construction of a splash pad totaling $2,920,139, includes everything listed above with the addition of the splash pad, which costs separately $661,100. Alternative 3 is the base bid with construction of a splash pad and a lap learning pool for a total of $3,569,739. This includes everything listed in alternative 1 and alternative 2, with the addition of a lap learning pool. So the lap learning pool individually would cost $649,600. So to add alternative 3 with the splash pad and the lap learning pool, that would add an additional $1,310,700 to the base bid cost. It is apparent that current market conditions have dictated unprecedented price increases for labor and materials. Additionally, supply chain issues continue to drive up construction costs. Due to these extenuating circumstances, the pool renovation project will not be able to be accomplished for the original amount projected. With that being said, staff recommends the mayor and common council accept the bid submitted by Keller Brothers Incorporated for the minimum amount of $2,259,039, alternative 1, with considerations to fund an expanded scope of work, either alternative 2 or alternative 3 being considered.
Thank you, Ms. Gruber. So a couple of details I think are important. The first is that the bid that's in front of you now will expire in December. So there's a little bit of time. They'll expire 2 days after the council meeting in December. Can't remember what that date is, but the second thing is a question came up earlier about the construction schedule. So if this were to be approved at some point under this current bid, the pool would have to be closed next summer for construction, but then would open up for the following summer. So the project would be finished shortly before pool opening. So now we have the finance director is going to give a little report on where to get that money from. So Ms. Gruber indicated that there's a gap in the financing from what we prepared already, which is a loan with CDA. So Ms. Colston, can you give your memo?
Sure. As you know, we secured funding through an infrastructure bond for $1,186,800, which represents a additional funding required in the amount of $1,072,239 to meet that bid, that base bid that Ms. Gruber had given of $2,259,039. Options for providing the funding are either from withdrawing from our current reserves or fund balance or utilizing ARPA funds. ARPA guidance states that building, improving outdoor infrastructure is a suggested use of the funds provided from the federal government. At this time, staff recommends that the mayor and common council approve the additional funding required for the renovation of the Westminster pool utilizing ARPA funds.
Mr. President, that concludes the staff report on this topic.
I have one technical question. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, please wait.
Okay.
So, so the staff, so I want to be clear before we take this up and ask for a motion.
Yep.
What exactly is the staff recommendation? Is it to accept, to accept alternate 1 as well as the additional alternatives, or just to accept alternate 1?
The staff recommendation to move forward at the very least is to recommend the base bid at the very least. My recommendation as the administrator is for council to consider the entire package as a whole. There are a variety of reasons, one of which is the ARPA funds are available, and the splash pad we think will be able to accommodate children through it'll be ADA, I don't know how to say this properly, it'll be ADA, it'll be accessible, rather that's the word I'm looking for. It'll be accessible to children that currently, can't use those facilities elsewhere. And we think the lab pool will provide an additional amenity to the community and will allow us to provide additional programming that we don't currently offer right now out there. But we want to make sure that we're asking only for what is necessary. So only what is necessary is the base bid. But I think that it should at least be discussed to consider the entire package. I recognize that this is a very challenging conversation to have, and I appreciate the opportunity to hear what you have to say and to help, provide whatever data and information that the council is interested in.
Okay. All right, and then the second part of the staff recommendation is to use ARPA funds to make up the difference between what would be bonded and whatever the total cost would be.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so so before we do anything else, I'm going to entertain a motion to accept the staff recommendation that the council approve the minimum amount in alternative 1, as well as consider approval of the additional alternatives, and that the funding difference be made up through ARPA funds.
So moved.
So there's been a motion by Ms. Gilbert. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's been a motion by Ms. Gilbert and a second by Mr. Dayhoff. All right. Any questions for the staff or any discussion?
Mr. President,
Mr. Hoff?
I just want to clarify one point, just because if, for the listening audience, the 1.186 number is comparable to the alternate one, which is the 2.259 number. Because when you were talking about it, you were referencing the total bid, which was 3.5, which makes it quite frankly even worse, look even worse than what it was compared to the 1.2. So if I'm comparing an apple to an apple of what our original estimate, our budget was for the project, it was for 1.186, but that equates to the 2.259 that we're looking at right now. And I just want that to be clear because that wasn't entirely clear, but I already knew it, but I want everyone, the viewing audience, to understand that. And then there's two alternatives. So you're nodding, indicating that I'm understanding that correctly. Gotcha.
That is correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Mr.
thank you,
President?
Mr. Hoff. Ms. Gilbert?
So I have a couple questions, Ms. Gruber, and I'm not sure, if I'm assuming you can probably answer this. So when we delved into the pool and we had the estimate back in 2019, I did a little bit of looking back and forth to the costs that were estimated. And just as a number, back then, the new splash pad was 290,000. And now we're almost triple that. All these prices that were estimated in 2019 have literally tripled. And I'm saying that with a question after my statement, because I mean, granted, I understand my bacon has tripled in the grocery store, but I find it, I just want to know that the tripling of our cost for this project is because of the product, not so much anything else that's going on. Is it so much that it is the product? I can't believe that a construction company is literally tripling their cost to do work in 2 years.
I can't with any confidence answer exactly why we have seen this increase, but as you did indicate, you've seen cost increases in almost every area of existence right now. And so certainly there is a certain amount of risk involved in running any construction project during this time, as supply chain issues and labor costs have all affected these companies that are placing bids out into the marketplace. So that's the best that I can answer your question at this point.
And a follow-up I have has to do with the funding. So we do have the ARPA money that we have is for building and improving all any outdoor infrastructure, which obviously a pool is. So if we would decide to do the entire project, that would be the 1,072,000 plus the 1,310,000, which would mean 2,382,000 and change coming out of the ARPA funds, which we have a total of 19,
Roughly 18 and change.
18. So that gives us plenty left over. Okay.
And to clarify, Mr. President,
Ms. Ingalls?
so the ARPA funds are available on this project because this project serves a low to moderate income area. Just want to clarify that. ARPA comes with a variety of rules on how that money gets to be spent. And this is one of the allocations that's available.
Right. Any further questions or comments?
Mr. President,
Mr. Dayhoff?
as someone who has mismanaged my schedule so badly that I have not one, not two, but 5 construction permits at the moment, all my costs have gone up triple and quadruple since a year, 2 years ago. So it's the market forces, it's the supply challenges, it's the labor cost. And a lot of folks are looking for a market correction and market adjustments. I don't think the market's going to adjust that much. I don't think it is. I think the labor costs are going to stay as increased as they are. And I think some of the material costs will come down, but it's going to be quite some time before they come down. I think that if you look at dollar cost averaging, since we acquired the pool in 1984, we've spent very little money on the pool since 1984. If you average that out over all the years of the pool and you look at the life of the pool, I think we're going to get tremendous return. I think this is a wonderful opportunity to do a basic infrastructure improvement in the community. And I think we should fund the entire project out of the CDA money and out of the ARPA funds. When you look at ARPA funds for infrastructure improvements, you see a picture of the Westminster Community Pool. I think we should do it.
Thank you, Mr. DeHuff. I know that there's been some discussion about how quickly we need to make this decision. And I know that the city administrator just referred back to her comment that the bids expire in December, so we have a little bit of time to make this decision. There's a lot here to digest and a lot of information. And I know that there's additional information that staff continues to gather, which I'm sure will be of interest to everybody. So, what I would like to suggest, and I know.
Well, I have some-
I have some comments as well.
I'll let you do that, yeah. I was gonna say, before we go any further, I'd just like to suggest that, what we're doing now is having a conversation about this, some discussion this evening, that I think that we're gonna, it's my view that we're best served by holding the vote over until the next meeting, to make a final decision, to give everybody a chance to weigh all the information and to hear anything additional that may commit. Mr. Camachi.
So I agree with you, Mr. President. I'm not ready to vote on this yet. So a couple of questions. Number one, and then I'll make a couple comments too. So first, questions. What is the number of city residents that utilize the pool on a regular basis? And versus, are there non-city residents that use it as well?
67% of our members last year were city residents and 33% were non-resident.
Okay, so that's members, but you don't have to be a member to use the pool. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So what about, what percentage of people are members versus non-members that use the pool?
I think that's what she just said.
No, you said city residents versus non-city residents. Is that what you said?
Yes, so that's of our membership. We do not track our gate fee attendees, so we do not have a way to actually extrapolate that information.
So, but you know how many people come through the gate that aren't members that pay?
I could likely pull those reports and I would be happy to do so and return that information to you.
But you don't know whether they are city residents or non-city residents
That
if
is
they're
correct.
non-members.
That is correct.
Understand. And it's the same fee. So a person who lives in the city pays the same fee for somebody who doesn't live in the city.
That is correct.
Well, that's a different discussion for a different day, but that, I'm not okay with that, but because we're funding it with city tax dollars, but I'll defer. I didn't know that. And I don't like that at all, but it's a different conversation. Okay, so yeah, I'd like to see non-member usage versus member usage, if you're able to provide that. What do the members pay to be a member per year?
Hold on, just want to make sure I have this written down. I do believe I have that information somewhere in a very large stack of papers. And if I can't easily locate it, I will.
Yeah, you can get that to us. We're not voting on it tonight.
I do have that. City resident individual is $139. City resident family, you can put up to 6 people in your membership. That is $235.
Mhm.
Non-resident individual is $169. Non-resident family is $315
So there is a difference between resident, non-resident for memberships.
for memberships,
Okay.
not
That's
for
good.
daily admission. Because it's two,
Probably hard to determine, especially with kids. Yeah,
There you
heck,
go.
people don't know where they live. All right, that makes more sense. You're right, because most people don't know whether they live in the city or not. Yeah,
Yes.
so that's fair, very fair. Okay. All right, so what are those numbers? What are you said it was 67 and 32. Did you give me the numbers that represents?
I did not, but I most
Yeah.
certainly can.
Could you?
Our resident memberships are 712.
That's family or individuals?
That's just members.
The total members.
Individually
So
counted.
712 people are members. Are
712 city residents
city
are
members.
members,
Mhm.
and 353 non-city residents are members.
Yeah, 18,000. So,
So close to 1,100 people.
right, but city residents, so it's about 7% or so. No. Yeah, anyway, okay.
Does that include a family though? And is
She said
one
individuals.
membership, is that individual or?
So if it's a family membership of 6 people, that counts individually, 1,
Oh,
2,
okay.
3, 4, 5,
712
6,
total.
in those statistics that you.
Okay.
received. Mhm.
All right, well, that's helpful. So then, Mr. President, I understand, we're talking about ARPA funds and there are rules when it comes to the ARPA funds related to what Ms. Imholz said in terms of how it could be used here, but ARPA funds can be used for all kinds of things, not just lower income related pool construction, or it can be used for road maintenance. It can be used for rebuilding our pipes within our water sewer system. It can be used for lots of different things. And there's lots of applications that we can use those ARPA funds for. And I think it's our responsibility to make sure that we're using those as absolutely as efficiently as we can for the good of the community. And I think we should also not forget, there's still tax dollars. That's not money that just magically appeared out of the sky. It's still money that if maybe not all Westminster city residents, but people paid for that. People meaning citizens paid taxes for it. And I think we have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we're spending it as wisely as possible. And maybe this is the wisest way we can spend it. So I don't want to say that I don't agree that this is something we should be considering, but I think we can't lose sight of the fact that this money can be used for lots of different things. As Council President Pepperell says, it's fungible and you can move money around for different things. And there's different things that we want to do here in the city. There's things that we have to do here in the city that we might be able to use these funds for that could alleviate, the need to do other things. So at the end of the day, I think that we've got to really remember that this isn't just magic money that just fell out of the sky, even though it seems that way. And it's money that we didn't anticipate that we were going to have a couple of years ago or even a year or two ago. So we're very fortunate to have it, but I think we need to be very responsible in the way in which we spend it. We went through a pretty tumultuous decision-making period related to our city family center. I'm sure you remember it pretty well. And those of us that were on council then all remember it very well and remember some of the comments and things that we received while at dinner with our families, or, just sitting at home answering the phone or whatever. Or I don't have social media, but from what people tell me, that was being posted on social media. So people were more than willing to give us input related to the family center. And I'd really like to hear some input from our citizens related to this decision. 712 of those citizens belong to the pool, which means about 17,000 or so do not belong to the pool. And I don't know whether they want us to spend this money, and it's not an insignificant amount of money, on the pool. They might use it. They might go as those gate fee guests, or they may never use it, but still think that it's important. I think it's important, and I've never been in the pool. I've been to the facility, so I think it has value. But I don't know how the rest of our citizens, I would suspect that the 712 that are members very much want us to do this. That would be my guess. But I'd like to hear from the 17,000 plus others as to what their opinion is whether we should be spending money on this, or if we are going to spend money, should it be to do the minimum, or should it be to do these add-ons? I'd like to hear that. So I guess if there are people watching this, I'd love to hear it. I don't know how else we maybe get the word out there to ask people for that input, but I'd like to receive some. You know, there are a couple of other things. I don't want to take, maybe we'll let, I know Councilman Huff wants to go, and then maybe we'll continue this either now or, but I do want to talk a little bit about timing and decisions we have to make, because I know we're feeling like there might be pressure. I'm not completely convinced that's the case, but we can talk about that in a minute.
All right, well, let me just say that, there's no pressure. I mean, we've got to make a decision by December, but I don't consider that pressure. I mean, I think that gives us, I think frankly, as opposed to, being told you got to decide tonight.
Well, I'm not convinced we do have to decide.
Well, the bids are going to expire.
Well, we don't have to take the bids. We
Well,
don't have to accept them.
that's true, but then the last time we didn't accept the bids, the bids just got higher.
We never received a bid. That was an estimate of the costs. We've never bid this out.
No,
we bid it twice.
There was a bid.
We actually did bid
We
it.
bid it twice.
And it's gone up each
It's
time.
gone
When did we receive that bid?
We received that bid this summer in July.
Okay, right, in July. I'm talking, but we did not get a bid back in 19. That was,
Correct.
the 1.32 million was
That
an
was-
estimate based upon that company that came in and did the analysis of what needed to be done. That's where that number came from. That number never came from a bid.
That is
The
correct.
only bid we received was the bid in July when prices had already skyrocketed at that
That's
point.
correct.
So do you want me to continue or want me to wait?
Go ahead.
So my question is, we have been doing repairs to the pool to keep it open for some time. You've said that. So if we don't do any of this, we choose to wait, and we're going to hold off and see what maybe shakes out over the next year. So what happens to the pool? Does it close?
I can't say yes or no. I can tell you that we struggled to maintain an operational level this summer with the amount of water that the pool was leaking.
But it's going to close for sure if we do the construction.
Correct.
All right.
We think that it's going to have to close. So,
Okay.
but yeah, we think even if we put the Band-Aids on, it's not going to last for the entire summer. And so then the question is, we put it on and hope for the best and close it when it fails, or do we preemptively close?
So when it fails, meaning that you can't, it's not a safety, nobody's getting hurt when it fails. It fails because it's leaking too much water, or the pump stops working and we can't filter the water, something like that. Is that correct? Or are we putting people's lives in jeopardy if it fails?
I think it's a good question to ask. What happens if we take no action? So let's let staff evaluate that for you. That's certainly not what we brought forward right now. So let's evaluate. We'll get back to you with an analysis. of
I'd like
what
to see
happens if
that.
We take no action.
Mr. President.
Sorry, Mr. Hoff.
So I got a couple different comments here, so give me a few minutes. First off, just clarity again for the viewing audience. The price that we were given in 2019 was the rough estimate was $1,186,800. What the comparable is $2,259,039. That is not triple, because the word triple's been thrown out here. That is not triple the cost. That is 90% increase, okay? Now, Mr. Dayhuff was talking about his budget experience. I do build outs all the time in my commercial world. And I will tell you, I did some right before the pandemic, and I'm doing one now. I don't know who Mr. Dayhuff is using, no offense, Mr. Dayhuff, but my costs have not gone up, that have not tripled or doubled. If this bid was about 30 to 40% higher, I'd be like, that's COVID, that's material costs. What I'm having heartache about right now is if the number, assuming the number that we had in 2019 was a good number, and I'm assuming that because it might not have been a good number, because that wasn't a bid, that was somebody's estimate. it's 90% more. 90% more feels like too much to me if the number in 2019 was correct. And I had mentioned to staff, I would feel a lot more comfortable knowing, because the reality is we only got one bid to start out with, and then we got two bids. It's not like I have 5 bids and that I can see that this is the lowest of 5 bids. I only got 2 bids. So my question is that 2.2, I'll just be blunt, is that 2.259 a good number, a reasonable profit level on that? Or is it someone just trying to take advantage of the situation? That's when we talk about taxpayers' dollars, that's the kind of question that I have in my mind. And I almost, and I don't know if there's a good way to get to this, and I would almost like to have, not an architect or a construction estimator, just to give me more comfort that the bid that we have is a reasonable bid under current market conditions. That is one issue I'm having here, digesting from my standpoint. Then overarching, we make a decision, kind of tying to what Mr. Kavachi says. I don't know where I am headspace wise as far as this is what we should be spending our money on. But everything's an opportunity cost. If we spend money, and this is a big chunk of money on this project, that's another project that we're not spending money on. I'm not saying that we shouldn't spend the money on this, but it's something that I have to weigh and think about. And I would love some feedback from, the public on that, because we're talking about a significant amount of money. And I know some of the other council members have stated that, therefore doing the whole thing. I'm having trouble just digesting the 2.2 million. And I am somewhat comfortable with maybe considering this flash thing, but as we keep on going up and up and up, it makes me more and more nervous. I'm just telling you where I am headspace wise. I don't know if there's something, and I'm going to give staff the opportunity to address that, is I need to get more comfortable that the bid that we have that's 90% more than what our estimate was in 2019 is a reasonable number based off of current market conditions, because I'm not convinced of that right now. And I want to get convinced of that, especially if I'm going to say yes. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Hoff. Ms. Gilbert, wish to be heard.
The only thing I just wanted to comment is just a follow up from Councilman Kavachi's comments on the amount of people using the pool. So other than just the memberships, that pool is also used for swimming lessons. It is also used for summer camp participants. Is there any other group of folks that use that pool during the summer, or potentially will if it changes with its capacity? Because the capacity of that pool was not ever meant to be a municipal city pool. It was meant to be, excuse me, a community pool for the Greens. So we kind of actually just inherited it and now are using that for even beyond what its use was even meant for. And looking at this project is now designed to be used as a pool for an entire community and support that community for numerous years, because that one we've used for 30 years in and about. I would assume that the next pool would also be here for 30 more years. Is there any intent on other forms of use other than the 3 that I mentioned, regular pool memberships, summer camp, and swimming lessons? Is there a thought of overreaching for use to include more of our citizens and or the county citizens?
So we do have the Stingrays swim team that also operates out of the Westminster Municipal Pool. It is their home. And in addition to what you've said, absolutely, if in fact the facility is enhanced to this level, we certainly could expand our programmatic offerings and we could absolutely sell more pool memberships than we are currently able to sell. We've never had to cut it off, but we are at a level that if we continue to sell in excess of what we're selling now, there would be days where we would have to turn people away because the pool would be operating over capacity.
And with the increase in in the pool, because there would be two essential pools, you theoretically could offer swimming lessons throughout the day. Also exercise classes throughout the day, which you do not do now because there is no space. So the opportunities for more income would and/or use by other individuals would actually increase.
Yes, it would absolutely expand our programmatic opportunities.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you,
President.
Mr. Kovaci.
So, couple of things. Number one, I want to make sure that everyone's clear that my quest to understand this better, and I think I'm speaking for Councilman Huff as well, but cut me off if I'm not. I don't think either one of us are sitting here saying we are anti-pool or want to close the pool down or don't want to do this. We just want to make a good decision. And I'm not ready to just say, yeah, let's just throw all $3.5 million at this thing. And I want to understand better from the community what they feel like a good decision would be, because while we are entrusted and put in office to make these kinds of decisions, when we can, I think it's good to get a feel for where some of the community is as well. I don't think we want to get into a discussion, though, related to the income generation that the pool generates, because I suspect that it's very expensive to operate that pool relative to the money that the pool brings in. I could be wrong, but I'm guessing it doesn't make money. And I think we all know that, and there's no sense even going down that path.
You're guessing that?
The pool loses money. It doesn't.
No. I've been waiting my turn.
When you put in capital costs at $3.5 million,
well, that's
you have to bring a lot of
Put
money.
in the real.
And all the money that we
that's a
put
fair
in
point.
capital
Yeah,
all these
that's-
years, I can
that's more
promise you it does not.
That's
You
more-
compare it to the other private pools around here.
Because
like
I'm
the
looking
Riding
at
Club,
the numbers. That's a fair point.
That's operating costs.
Yes, sir.
You have to put all these costs in there. That's how you run a business. You know that.
Yes, sir. So I'm well aware.
It does not make money. It
Yes, sir.
loses money. But we know that going into it. It's been losing money probably since the day we had to rescue it from, I guess, the homeowners association that probably owned it.
Yeah.
And when it failed, the city took it over.
Yeah.
So, I just wanted to clarify that, Mr. President.
Thank you.
So I don't come off as the Grinch who stole the pool here. That's not my intention.
Mr. President.
Mr. Zayhoff.
I think that Councilman Kovaci and Councilman Huff have raised some great points. I wonder, does the Finance Committee have a list of projects that we might consider with the ARPA money? Because I think Mr. Kovaci, I think they both raised really, really good points, because we may, before it's all over, we may need to be juggling the fungible assets, the fungible money that's available between a number, because we've got a lot of projects in the city. I think it's a very fair point.
Well, yeah, I would say that, we did, I think, share, back when we were discussing the ARPA fund, some of the ideas we had for projects that would be eligible. And, my sense is that this would still fit within
Okay.
the amount of money that we have. I mean, we've got over $18 million. And, while we've certainly identified a lot of uses for that, we haven't identified uses for all of that.
Mhm.
And so I think that that's part of the opportunity here. If somebody, if somebody, after a careful reading of the act, which, I haven't read the entire act, but I've certainly read, a number of summaries of it. that talk about
I have
what's-
fallen asleep reading it.
Yeah, what's
I have.
eligible, I think we're being very careful to identify projects that are eligible. Uses that are eligible, and I think we're still, sort of in the black, as it were, in terms of, finding uses and having the capacity to do what we want to do.
As far as Mr. Kovaci's point, I think it's a fair point. Often when I look at assets and profit and loss, I take in consideration depreciation. And GASB 34 requires that we depreciate the project. I wonder, Mr. President, as the finance chair, you would consider reaching out and asking Ms. Colston what the depreciation is on, according to GASB 34, and we could figure that into the numbers a little bit. Because I think there has been a discussion since the last time we raised the rates. I think what's not been verbalized here is that we are going to have to look at the rates again. And I think Mr. Kovaci's point about a rate differential is something that I definitely have in mind as far as taking a look at the rates,
So
again.
I think some of you who were on the council at the time or on the staff at the time will recall that just prior to the pandemic,
Mhm.
in the year prior to the pandemic, when we had the large discussion about city, recreation.
Family center and the
facilities.
pool. Yeah, I still twitch it.
You know,
right?
yes, and a number of us do.
Yeah,
As part of that discussion, we discussed raising rates, throughout the city's recreational system, and I think we made a number of adjustments. As Ms. Gruber can show you from the old figures and new figures, we did it at the fitness center, we did it at the pool,
Mhm.
we did it with programs, not all of which she's been able to run, since that time because of the pandemic. But we adjusted our rates across the board, and we
Mhm.
also were very careful in doing that to apply wherever possible the differential for non-city
Mhm.
residents, because we thought that was established at the time as something that was important and that we wanted to continue.
and I think an important point to make is that we heard clearly from our citizens that if, in order to save the family center and to save the pool, that they would be more than willing to pay increased rates for the two facilities. We clearly heard that, and I don't know if Ms. Gruber could help us out here or not, but how do you factor in COVID-19? But I have heard zero complaints about the rate, about the rate
Well, I
increase.
think we did raise the rates, and I think that, part of the balance that we wanted to achieve at the time is, let's remember why we're in the business of running recreational
Yes,
facilities here.
And
all right?
part of our return
And
is,
part of the reason that we're in this
Right.
business is because we're providing facilities
Right.
for our citizens, primarily for our citizens, some of whom are not able to go out and afford,
Mhm.
private opportunities to engage in similar activities. And the pool is a great example of that. For many years, I had a pool in my backyard. Not everybody can afford to do that. For some years before that, I was a member of the riding club. Not everybody can get into the riding club. Not everybody can afford to be a member of the riding club. Private opportunities for water recreation are very limited in our community
and important.
and very important in the summertime as well. And as the city administrator referenced earlier, and I think Ms. Gruber may have mentioned it as well, this is the Greens isn't a low income neighborhood, but it's a working class
For
neighborhood.
working.
This is where, it was a pool that was built for that community because there was no other way that community was going to have access to that kind of recreational opportunity. And I think it's important, from my view, just as I said during the discussion about the fitness center, I think it's important that we keep that in mind. So, so to me, that's an important argument. We've talked about, capital, the cost of the pool. My understanding is that, the pool operationally, operates, pretty efficiently, and I think does operate in the black for operations now. Again, that doesn't include the capital cost, but I think that when you talk about public recreational facilities, it doesn't make sense to talk about the capital cost. I mean, that's the reason why the city is operating this facility, is because the private sector can't do it in a way that covers the capital costs and the operating costs and makes it affordable for a lot of people. So to me, this is an essential part of what the city
It's
does
essential.
and ought to be doing. That's who we are and why we're doing this.
Mr. President.
I'm not finished yet, Mr.
Oh, sorry.
And, so I think that the question, and we're gonna have more discussion about this tonight and over the next couple of weeks, but, it's clear we can't run the pool the way it is. I mean, we talked about this 2 years ago when we had the consultant make the presentation. There were a number of factors that impacted that. First of all, was the fact that it's leaking like a sieve, and we can't afford to have that happen. The second part was that there are some operational issues there that do raise some safety issues for staff, and we don't want to get into a lot of discussion about that, but I think it's significantly important that we remember that, and that we want to make sure that we get that taken care of as soon as we can. So then, the question is, do we want to have a pool? In my mind, we do want to have a pool for the reasons I stated earlier. I think that's an important facility and it's an important thing that the city offers to its citizens. We have an obligation to provide these kind of facilities, in my view, and I think that's what we've got to do here. Moving forward with the proposal that we originally heard a couple of years ago, and by the way, this should have been done a couple of years ago. I mean, it is not the fault of anybody in this room that it was not. But nonetheless, the fact remains that had it been done when it should have been done, we wouldn't be having this discussion right now. We would have had much better prices than it would have been. It wouldn't be a problem right now. Taking this action to upgrade the pool facility in the way it was recommended by the consultant and the way that we put it out to bid will increase the capacity of the pool. Will give Ms. Gruber and her staff the opportunity to market it a little bit more widely, to other city residents. So we might increase the number of people, city residents who do get to use it. And there'll always be people from outside the city who want to use it, and that's fine. We welcome our neighbors to all of these things. We just want them to understand that, because they don't live in the city, pay city taxes, they've got to contribute a little bit more to the operation. I think that's fair. So, I think that, for these reasons, I think this is something that we ought to be giving serious consideration to. I recognize it's a great deal of money. I recognize also that we have, fortunately, an opportunity, not that it's, money out of just out of the air, but, as the country looks at, improving and upgrading essential infrastructure across the board, all kinds of things. I think this fits into that category, and that's why it's appropriate for us to be discussing this tonight and over the next couple of weeks. And I hope that when we get to a final decision, we'll keep all those things in mind and think about what makes the most sense for us all. And I recognize that it's with no disrespect to any of my colleagues, and I rarely weigh in on these things, but I am passionate about this particular issue. I think, it is an important balance, how we want to, and I think that we always want to be cautious. We want to be good stewards of the city's funds. And I think that part of being good stewards is, as we have done in the past, sometimes making a difficult decision and spending a little more money than we'd like to spend in order for the right result to occur. And that's what I think really being a good steward is about. So I'll get off my soapbox now. Anybody else would like to be heard tonight? And I reckon, and of course, we are going to bring this back in 2 weeks for additional discussion.
Mr. President,
Ms. Gilbert.
that was very eloquently said.
Yeah, I would love it.
You said it pretty much all. I just want to kind of tag on a little bit. I've been going to the city pool and have had a membership for 30 years since my daughter was a newborn. For many of those years, I was a single mom. I'm a working class woman, and I meet tons of different people at the pool every single summer, from teachers to EMTs to construction workers, you name it. You kind of talk a lot when you're sitting on a chair with a book, and also with little kiddos. And yes, I'd love to upgrade the pool personally, but it is all those people that I've met over the years that love the pool. They use it for all kinds of purposes. Mainly it's summer memories. And for a lot of people who can't get to go anywhere outside of Westminster, or do not see or experience other things that many of us get to experience, that is their memories. And I agree with everything that you said. A lot of times, just the city providing those opportunities, they're priceless for individuals who do not have the opportunity to experience that, or could not if that was not offered. So that's my only add.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. President.
Mr. Hoff.
Number one, I was going to agree with you from the standpoint, I think sometimes people look at government or make comments like government should be run as a business. And believe me, I think you should have a business mindset sometimes when it comes to governmental issues, but it's not about whether it makes money or not make money. We're in the business of providing services for our citizens. And I look at the pool as being like a park. And we have parks and they don't necessarily quote, make money. So it's nice if our membership fees cover our main operational costs. I agree with that, but that's not my hang up. My biggest hang up that I would like to get to a better place on 2 weeks personally, for me to be able to feel good about the vote that I may take, is getting a little bit of a better feeling that the 90% increase in this price from, in theory, 2019 is reasonable or not. And I just don't know that. And I'm hoping that sometime in the next 2 weeks, staff can get me more comfortable with that. Because in all honesty, if that 1.2 million number was a legit number in 2019, it should not be 90% more. I will say that. I will, and it could be that number isn't right. But I've been doing, construction's gone up, but it hasn't gone up like 90%, not in 2 years. So I'm hopeful that staff can get me to a better place when it comes to that within the next 2 weeks. So thank you.
Thank
So,
you,
Mr. President, I promise I'll be short. So just quickly, following up on your comments, I asked questions about what the membership fees were, what it costs, but if you recall, I made the comment that we do not want to get into a discussion in terms of whether it makes or loses money. That's why I was asking those questions. It's not going to make money, and we aren't doing it to try to make money.
Right.
That's why I was asking those
Right.
questions. I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that pool should be making us money, or frankly, even breaking even, because to Ms. Gilbert's point, your point, folks that are using it are typically using it because it's the best option for them from an economic standpoint to go there versus some of the more expensive opportunities that might be out there that folks go to. So I just want to make sure that I'm in agreement with Mr. Huff that we're not talking about the operating costs here. We're talking about, is this the best use of the money for this capital expense?
No, and I understand that. I just wanted to mention, make sure that everybody understood,
Sure.
how these things work, because it is government, it's not business, and that is, as you both pointed out.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Dayhoff.
Yeah, I wanted to rise to support my colleague, Mr. Kovaci, because I always look up to him and his leadership on recreation opportunities in the city of Westminster. He's always been one of our strongest supporters of recreation opportunities. The one thing that I learned, as far as Mr. Huff's point, which I think is a fair point, the one thing that I learned about the pool is that it's a specialized contractor. It's not every contractor that can do this work. It's a very, very specialized contractor that does this work. And I think that may contribute to why it is that we haven't gotten more bids. I would like to see more bids also. And then as the council historian, I would remind my colleagues that historically, the city of Westminster has always been really preoccupied with recreation opportunities. I think it contributes to why it is that we have the high quality of life, why it is that we attract businesses to our community, and why it is that we have the crime rate that we do, the low crime rate that we do, because our citizens have lots of recreational opportunities. And I guess as an aside, I sure hope I don't get 174 emails like I did in a 48-hour period with the Family Center. That was a little much. I responded to each and every one of them too. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dayhoff. Okay.
I'd like the
So-
174 because I want to hear what people have to say.
Well, I do too, but
Well, and and I would just say, I'm always happy to hear what people have to say, but ultimately, like I said, and I think that a lot of people who might weigh in aren't the people who have the experience using facilities like this.
True.
And I think that, while there may be some people who might call and say, hey, I don't use the pool, save the money and don't spend it. I think the pool matters a lot to the people who do use it. And I'm kind of, leaning in that direction. So, I think that that's important as well. So we will have additional opportunity to discuss this in 2 weeks. I
Mr.
believe
President, did you want to
this,
make a motion to table this item?
no, I didn't.
Okay.
just continue it.
Yeah, well, what I was going to say was, I think we're going to have some more discussion about this in 2 weeks. I think there's going to be more opportunity to get some information from staff during that time. And so I think that without objection, we're just going to carry this item over to the next agenda. We're not taking a motion. You don't need to do that. Thank you. So without objection, we're so ordered.
Objection.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
All right,
President.
thank you. Move on now to ordinances and resolutions. We have 2 items under ordinances and resolutions. The first is adoption of resolution 21-08, Sustainable Communities Renewal Application. Mr. Depot.
Back in 2012, the city applied for and was designated as a sustainable community under the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development. Designation folded together a number of state programs and funding streams, and those are listed in the actual staff report. Every 5 years, we have to renew an application, be redesignated as a sustainable community. It's that time now, so we put together an updated application, working with other departments in the city to update that information. And we're here tonight to asking the mayor and common council to support the sustainable community application and approve the resolution supporting this application.
All right, thank you. So let's begin with a motion. May I have a motion to adopt resolution 21-08?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Dayhoff and a second by Ms. Gilbert. Any discussion or any questions for the staff?
Mr. President.
Mr. Hoff.
A comment and then a couple questions. First off, I was very impressed with the amount of work that went into the application. I will say, as a new member to council, reading it, I learned some things I didn't know. So thank you very much just for reviewing the application. And I wanted to kind of get a sense from staff as far as, by doing this, I just want to have a clearer understanding what opportunities this provides to us. Because I know sometimes when you say the word sustainable community, you know, we live in a political environment where people, and I'm very moderate when it comes to those sort of issues. And unlike some people within my party, I believe climate change is an issue. But, you know, I always want to strike a balance to that. So I want to understand better, by us having this designation, what does it do for us? Does it put any limitations or restrictions on us? Just a better sense of that. And then the other question I have is, there was some mention within the application of becoming a sustainable Maryland certified community down the road. And I just want a better understanding what that is. So if you could just speak to those multiple questions a little bit, not in great detail, but just overall.
And thank you. And Andrew Gray was a very big part of this application, and I'd be remiss not to point that out and also look to him to answer some of these questions. I do not want to mislead the council.
That's good. He's here.
Exactly.
Handy, Mr. Gray. Here you are.
So, Mr. President, if I may.
Mr. Gray.
Thank you, council member. So your first question about what this application opens us up to: strategic demolition fund and community legacy. Community legacy includes facade improvement grants. The Historic District Commission this in the past 2 months has approved 2 of those already. So that's what the main thing right now is, facade improvement grant funding. And
so we need this designation to be able to qualify to getting some other funding through the state.
Correct.
Yes.
Understand.
Yes, sir. And then the second part of your question about the sustainable Maryland through the University of Maryland and Environmental Finance Center through Mike Cunningham. That is totally different. This is sustainable communities through DHCD. That's sustainable Maryland through University of Maryland. That has an application, and well, the resolution was already passed end of last year. So we're a sustainable Maryland registered community, but then there's an application that goes along with that to be a sustainable Maryland certified. When we were down at the MML summer conference, I spoke with Mike Cunningham. I spoke with Mark, and I need to get with, we need to talk with Administrator Imhoff to write a plan for sustainable Maryland. End of last year, I went through and I saw what things do we do that could qualify us to be a sustainable Maryland certified community. And from what I saw, we exceed that through Tree City USA. There's just so many different things that we do that qualifies. It takes us above that 200 or some limit. We're into the 300 points. And also with the
what does that get us, though, getting that designation down the road?
the sustainable Maryland that gets us, it opens us up to more potential grants through
Okay.
the Environmental Finance Center. Mike Hunninghake already reached out with some other ideas for us, and he's they're very helpful.
Additional funding sources. So
Yes, sir.
are there any limitations that this designation puts on us as a city that we should be aware of?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
There is a map, and the sustainable communities is not the entire city. It's just a section of the city, which is basically downtown.
Okay. But there's no great limitations that it puts on us from another standpoint that you're aware of. That's
Not-
one of,
not that
okay.
I'm aware, sir.
Okay, thank you.
This is really an opportunity to look for funding, as Mr. Gray has indicated, and also for partnerships. So being
Right.
included in this designation allows us to then, as part of our partnership opportunity when we look to leverage other funds.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoff. Any other questions for staff? Any further discussion? All right, this is for adoption. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have, and the ayes have it. And the motion, the resolution is adopted. Thank you. Next item is adoption of ordinance number 940, amending fiscal year 2022 budget. Ms. Colston.
Good evening, Council President and Common Council. On May 10th, 2021, the ordinance number 935 for the current fiscal year 2022 budget was adopted. During the current year, it had become apparent that the city has incurred or will incur expenses exceeding the current appropriations, and therefore additional appropriations are necessary. The summary of the proposed additions were included in your packet. At this time, staff recommends that the mayor and common council adopt the amended budget appropriations as detailed in ordinance number 940. And I am available for questions should you have them.
All right, thank you. May I have a motion? Well, we already have a motion. We've introduced it at the last meeting, so. Yes, no, we need a motion to adopt. Yes, so we have a motion to adopt the budget amendment.
Here, here. Second.
Okay, there's been a motion by Ms. Gilbert to adopt and a second by Mr. Dayhoff. Is there any discussion or any questions for staff? I just want to say, I want to thank Ms. Imholz and staff, not just Ms. Colson, but the other department heads for pulling together, a variety of needs that we needed to get amended. We've had some things that needed to get updated in the budget, and I appreciate this method of dealing with it. I think it's a very neat way of doing it. It keeps it all in one place and makes it easy for us to understand and follow what we're doing here. So is there any further discussion? Hearing none, are you ready for the vote? All those in favor of adopting ordinance number 940, amending fiscal year 2022 budget, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have, and the ayes have it, and the ordinance is adopted. Very good. All right. There is no unfinished business of which I'm aware, so we'll move on to new business. And there is no new business of which I'm aware. Does anybody have any new business to raise? Hearing none, we'll move on to departmental reports.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to start with a couple of comments. I know that during the pool discussion, that was a tough conversation. It's a tough thing to think through. And I just want to say, as a newbie, as the newest person in the room, I really appreciate that you are all willing to have these tough conversations with each other, to do your due diligence, but to think through things with respect and with empathy. I'm impressed with that. And it makes me incredibly proud to be working for this government. So thank you all for your hard work on those discussions. I want to thank you for the budget amendment that you've just adopted. This is a really important step for council to show your continued support of the staff. This is not new support, it's continued support. It's leadership on your part to sort of, as Mr. Dayhoff, Councilmember Dayhoff says, deferred maintenance, to deal with some deferred maintenance, and the staff really appreciates it. And I have already seen the tangible results of the new energy that you have put forward through to the staff. I get a lot of credit for these things, but really the credit falls with you because you have to make these difficult decisions. And we thank you for that. Okay, so we spoke earlier about Downtown Business Association meeting that we had today. I thought it went pretty well. We had about 30 people, you think were there? About 30 people plus staff. We spoke about upcoming events. We talked a little bit about public safety and problem-oriented policing. We had the entire staff there. So people could ask questions afterwards. I wanted to make sure that the business community felt and continues to feel if they attend these meetings, that they're of merit to the community. And at the end of it, they said, when's the next meeting gonna be? And I said, well, it depends. How often do you think you wanna meet? And they said monthly. So I think that's great feedback. So we have the next business meeting, Downtown Business Association meeting scheduled for December 6th at 3 p.m. I assume that's gonna be at 45 West Main, but we'll stay tuned. As these numbers grow and as people participate, we may outgrow that space and need to move to another space. But I thought that meeting went really well today. And it seems both an opportunity to receive information from the city, but there was also some opportunities to participate between the business community to kind of piggyback on what each other are doing. So I'm hopeful that that is going to re-energize everyone and we can focus on some of the downtown areas. Now, let's see, read my writing. The Exploration Commons, which is, of course, the expansion to the library that I'm so excited about. And if anyone has not had a chance to go take a look at that, do it. They are going to have their grand opening. Maybe it's called a ribbon cutting ceremony on December 17th. Now, Council, I had mentioned to you a different date. That date has changed. Now it's locked in stone on December 17th from 3 to 5. And Exploration and Commons, that's a Friday. It's the following Friday. It's not, it is what it is. I think that they're trying to get the governor's office or some sort of representative out to the area. So we encourage the downtown businesses to take advantage of that opportunity. We'll have people in town that might not always be in town. We should be all dressed up from the parade in November. And I think that's a good opportunity.
What was that date again?
December 17th from 3 to 5. That's at Exploration Commons. It's a Friday. Friday before Christmas.
That's
Yeah,
good time.
that's not ideal, but that's when it is. And it's gonna be great, I'm sure of it. All right, so we're gonna move on to departmental reports. I'm gonna start tonight with the planning department. As you can see from the agenda, and frankly, I think the planning department generally is only known for, site plan, zoning. But as you can see from the agenda, they do a lot more than that, right? They are involved in most of the grants that we pull together that are not recreation oriented. The planning department pulls together. They are keeping tabs on almost everything that's happening in the city. They've got some piece of it. And so Mark's gonna talk a little bit about some events that we've got coming up in November that happen to fall under the planning department, such as Small Business Saturday, the Mayor's Cup Contest, and the holiday market. And feel free to whatever else is on your agenda. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank Mark, he and his staff, Andrew's here, we've got one more staff member. They work very, very hard to do the work of a department twice this size. And I just want to take that opportunity to recognize that we're not just the planning and zoning department, but also community and economic development and every other thing that we throw at them. So Mark, you want to take it away?
Thank you. Yes. So as mentioned, in conjunction with Miracle on Main Street, the Small Business Saturday Shopping Passport Program begins on November 27th and runs to December 5th. Now, during this time period, you can visit Carroll County Main Street businesses that are participating in the program. And upon a purchase of any item, the business will sign the passport. After receiving 8 signatures from different businesses, you can drop the completed passport at your local library and government agency. And we'll provide those addresses for people. 20 winners will be picked at random and receive a $50 gift certificate good at any passport business. The passports will be distributed to participating businesses during the week of November 15th for customers. So that is right around the corner. The Mayor's Cup storefront and window holiday decorating contest, also in conjunction with Miracle on Main Street, is a long-standing contest recognizing the decorative storefronts and windows of downtown Westminster businesses displayed throughout the holiday season. We do ask that displays be completed by November 27th to coincide with Miracle on Main Street. Past selected winners for categories such as Best Kid-Friendly, Best Business Promotion, Best Traditional, Best Non-Traditional, and Funniest. But the big one, the Mayor's Cup, is awarded to the business with the best overall display. The cup is engraved with the name of the winning business each year and proudly displayed at the winning business. For the holiday market, we did talk about that. That's at Stocksdale property, 29 West Main Street, but it's not bad to plug it again. That starts on November 26th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and every subsequent weekend from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. up until December the 19th. Okay, on November 3rd, the Historic District Commission approved the facade improvement program application for 121 East Street for approximately $13,000. And this is one of those programs and grants that we get as being a sustainable community. The HDC also discussed the tax credit application requirements, the demolition permit for 288 East Main Street, and best practices for local historic preservation programs, including reaching out to the Maryland Historic Trust and the Heart of the Civil War Heritage area for input on those items. On November 11th, the Planning and Zoning Commission is scheduled to hear a site development plan application for Raising Cane chicken fingers. Again, this is nothing new, but it is actually now on the agenda. This is a 3,448 square foot restaurant located at the current Denny's, which is at the intersection of Maryland 140 and Angler Road. Also, the Valvoline Instant Oil Change. It's a 2,108 square foot service station facility. And that's located at the old Carroll County Veterinary Clinic at the intersection of Maryland 120 and Gorsuch Road. We also have a water amendment. There's a property located immediately outside the city, adjacent to the Stonegate development, that's asking to be pulled out of the service area, the W1, to no plan service. Again, this is a property outside the city. It's difficult to provide water and sewer to this, and most likely it would be for residential development. It's not really a commercial location. I also want to just point out and give a shout out to Andrea Gerhardt, who isn't here. She did apply for and we did get awarded to become a neighborhood champion for Small Business Saturday through the American Express in partnership with Main Street America. This is a free service, and we have several businesses that have signed up for this as well. Within the area, I think we had 100 people signed up through this program within within our zip code. And essentially for us, what it does provide is complimentary marketing materials, planning guides, shop small merchandise, and other such things that we can provide to local businesses that they can offer to visitors, customers, and also display at their business as well. So with that concludes my report. Do you have any questions?
Mr. President, before we move on to another department, are there any questions for planning?
Mr. Kavachi?
I do. Denny's, what's going in there? You said?
That's Raising Cane chicken fingers.
So are water usage is going to stay about the same because it's a similar seating?
Well,
similar-
actually it goes down.
Okay.
Denny's as a sit-down restaurant would draw more water than more of the fast food type of Raising Cane.
Great.
And this is the first one in the state of Maryland.
I've heard it's very good.
Worked really hard with them to get a really nice design.
I was excited.
For that
I've heard
location.
positive things. The community or I guess the developer that wants to pull out of the service area.
I wanted to hear.
That he doesn't have to apply to us for that, does he?
He does. It's a property owner. She's owned this property for several years. It's very difficult to run water and sewer to this property. She would like to possibly develop it for residential, but, and that's a primary reason. So it does have to go through this water amendment process that
septic and well.
Exactly. If she falls under no plant service, the only way she develops is through well and
And
septic.
who approves that outside of us? Does MDE have to approve?
Health
that?
department. Health department.
Health
would be
department,
involved
okay.
in any well and septic.
It's because they're in our designated growth
Right,
area.
yeah,
Exactly.
right, understood.
I'm familiar with this from planning and zoning for Carroll.
So do we have a dog in the hunt? Do we care one way or the other?
It actually benefits, it's beneficial. Again, it's difficult to service it. It would be primarily residential that would be servicing outside city limits.
So they're gonna be on such a long, they're not getting water for 5 years, 10 years, even if they want to.
Not ever, and it's saving waters really
Okay.
for city development more than anything.
Mr. President. Mr. Dayhoff.
WS one, WS two,
It's W1
it's a W
right
one.
now.
Okay, Mr. President,
Never to make
Mr.
them wait
Dayhoff?
forever.
may we have a copy of your report?
Yeah,
It was
I'll-
excellent. I really appreciate it. It's a complete report, because I want the dates. And I want the report, because I got some questions also about pulling that property out.
Okay.
Yeah.
It'll be in the minutes.
Yeah.
Is it in the packet and I missed it? Is that the departmental reports?
It's in the minutes, but these things
Okay.
usually in the departmental reports too. And
I
know you often ask-
wondered that,
You
but
often ask, but if you look in the departmental reports, I think it's still on.
I, yeah, and I'm aware, I just,
And it is up, all those reports for the planning commission are online, available for viewing for this Thursday. But we can certainly forward that to you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so anything else, Mark?
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
So speaking of, it's the lighting in here. Speaking of Miracle on Main Street, we're going to swing on over to the Recreation and Parks Department. I'd like to start first by thanking Ms. Gruber. As you mentioned, Mayor and Council, we had a meeting with some state delegates this week, and Ms. Gruber was on the team that gave excellent report, in my opinion,
Yep.
to pitch why we need some state funding to help us out with some projects. So Ms. Gruber, let's talk about Miracle on Main and anything else you have to talk about.
Yes, so if it's not already on your calendar, please make sure that November 27th is marked out, because we would love to have you join us. As some of you know who have been on council in previous parades, that we invite you to join us and represent the city on a horse-drawn carriage. Be lit as well, so that we can make sure we are thematically appropriate. And our parade does start at 5 p.m. on that day. Prior to that, we will have live holiday music downtown on the library stage from 4:15 to 5:15. Just add a little ambiance to shoppers that might be partaking in Small Business Saturday and our Passport program and our market. Thank you. And then we'll have our Jingle Bell Run that kicks off at 4:55, 5 minutes prior to the parade start. That is the last in our mile run series for 2021. And then, of course, our parade will process Pennsylvania Avenue to Main Street to Longwell Avenue, at which time we will stop briefly to allow council to take seats, so that you will be present for our tree lighting ceremony that happens immediately following the parade. And certainly we bring Santa Claus to town, so he will be part of our tree lighting ceremony, and then he will take up residence on the library lawn for 3 subsequent Saturdays in December, at which time children can visit with Santa Claus and also embark on a horse-drawn carriage ride around the city, departing from Locust Lane. So we are very excited to be offering these activities this holiday season. They have been embraced by our community, and we always have a lot of support for these events. So with that being said, this week we will be going live with our Celtic Canter 5K registrations. It is time for us to put that out into the atmosphere. Our goal is always to have that up and running for the YMCA's Turkey Trot. This is a great partnership that we've been able to develop with them, whereby they allow us to advertise our race through the runners that are participating in their Turkey Trot. So we have to make sure that our dates are set and that our registration links are live and run signups, so that we can accommodate any interested early bird registrations. So we are moving forward with that. That is ready to go. And additionally, we have already set a tentative entertainment schedule for all of our 2022 events. The reason for that is if we don't get out ahead of that prior to the first of the year, we can't always get the bands that we wish to have for our events. So we are moving full steam ahead, looking forward to the end of 2021 and moving productively into 2022. Thank you as always for your continued support.
Ms. Gruber,
Yes.
I know I got a copy at the Downtown Business Association meeting, but it might be nice to send that out to council, the tentative schedule.
Sure.
Because I don't know about everybody else, but I like putting that kind of stuff on my calendar well in advance.
I'd be happy to.
Well, particularly the running schedule, so I know when to be out of town. That's the most important one.
Any questions for Recreation Department, Mr. President?
Questions? No?
Okay, moving along, Councilmember Hoff mentioned during the Economic Development Committee report that the Department of Housing had a few things to share. So we are going to move over to Mr. Brown, who is joining us via Zoom.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening to council members and the mayor. I just want to follow up on Councilman Dayhoff. And one of the things that we're doing is making some amendments to the administrative plan for the Housing Authority. The administrative plan sort of is our policies and procedures for the Housing Choice Voucher Program. HUD earlier made some waivers, and the Housing Authority had been taking advantage of those waivers. So now we need to put those formally in our policy. On Friday, we put them up on the website. There has to be a public comment period for 30 days. The 30-day period began on the 5th. The notice was also appearing in the paper today. And it's our intent to, after the comments are received, to bring it to the mayor and council, I think your first meeting in December. You can see the details of the actual proposed changes on our website. They include everything from giving us the flexibility to be able to do owner certification of inspections, that there are no health and safety issues in the unit during times when you have a health emergency like we did with COVID. We also raised, one of the other things we did is like raise the time in which the amount of money in which a family has to report. Current policy says $500 annually, and we're going to raise that to $1,000 annually, because right now we know that, right now some of the changes are running about $900, $920. So this is just makes sense for us to be able to do that. Like we said, a lot of it is really technical, but the details you'll be able to see all of the changes, the current and the proposed, on our website, and it's up there. I'll answer any questions if anyone have any questions.
Thanks, Eric. So again, council members, this will come before you and for the December meeting to adopt those very technical housekeeping type of changes. Chief, we're going to move on to your department.
Good evening, everyone. So we did our Employees of the Quarter Awards for the third quarter of 2021. And earning the designation for Police Officer of the Quarter was PFC Mindy Phillips. She's doing some excellent work, including a lot of foot patrol, handling a lot of calls for service, addressing traffic infractions, and making criminal arrests when appropriate. Specifically on September 25th, she conducted an investigation that resulted in the seizure of 32 baggies of heroin and 11 baggies of cocaine. So she was awarded with the Police Officer of the Quarter. The civilian employee of the quarter was Will Parks, who was our property management specialist. He earned that designation through a combination of things, including proactive initiatives to make improvements within our property and evidence room,
his willingness to always be a team player within the organization. He also took the initiative to make some procedural advancements within the property room. And he's also consistent with having a positive demeanor and being very responsive to the rest of the staff. We started our fall in-service training, which includes legal updates effective October 1st and the current legislative changes that are affecting law enforcement. We consulted with Department of Public Works and Mr. Glass, and we've decided to rebid the police headquarters generator project. It's going to encompass a little bit more as far as the electrical tasks needed to accommodate the larger generator and powering the police station. So Public Works is helping us put together the RFP for the new bid on that. Our 2 police recruits continue to do well in the police academy. As Councilman Kavachi touched on earlier, Captain Nikki Orr was asked to participate in a panel which taught LGBT awareness for law enforcement at the FBI's National Academy Session 280. She also sat on a liaison program and a community engagement panel. And as Councilman Kavachi talked about earlier, the FBI was impressed with the presentations, and Captain Ura is working on a train the trainer for classroom instruction. And they've also been approached about teaching it to the new agents in the FBI Academy. So kudos to Cap for that. We're preparing to start our annual holiday patrols. It's where we pick up in areas where people do more holiday shopping. We've got a more focused approach this year to cover both downtown businesses as well as our big box stores and others out on the Route 140 corridor. And finally, I've been asked to participate in a fundraiser for the Westminster Boys and Girls Club, their annual fundraiser. I know Councilman Kavachi's family member is also participating, but I'm going up against Sheriff DeWeese, so I'm probably going to get dunked. I'm asking for everyone's support. If you,
It's a politician.
if you're interested in supporting the annual fundraiser for the Westminster Boys and Girls Club, you can go on there, and the Polar Dunk Giving Day would be the selection. And obviously, if you're so inclined, the Chief Ledwell button would help support my quest to raise money for this cause. That's all I have.
Do you get dunked if we press the Chief Ledwell button?
No.
So Deweese gets dumped if you give money for Ledwell.
You're in trouble.
Whoever raises the most money doesn't get dumped.
I want to both give money to the chief and watch him get dunked.
I'm gonna get dunked.
Damn. All right, well, we're gonna do everything we can to keep the chief dry.
Mr. President, it looks like we may have some questions.
I just wanted to make one comment, Chief. When I was at the meeting today, someone, a business owner, came up to me who's not always necessarily positively inclined, let's put it like that. And he's a good guy. But I just will pay you a compliment. He was complimenting, and he's been around a long time, about how great our police officers are. And kind of in comparison to some of his experiences in the past. So I really think that starts from the, top down by setting a good tone and culture. So I just wanted to pass on. I kind of should have done that during council comments, but just seeing you over there made me think of it, and just wanted to pass on that, because it's always nice to get positive feedback. And this is someone who doesn't necessarily give positive feedback. So I would just want to pass that on.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I also received a couple of people saying similar information about how much they appreciate the downtown foot patrol, and there's a specific officer who's sort of, what is her role? She's checking in on downtown outreach. So that's working, and I'm hearing about it. So thanks. We do not have a report from the HR director or from the IT director. or from the finance director. So we're going to wrap things up by moving on to Public Works.
I really don't have much to report either, but I did want to take the opportunity to thank the council for the adoption of Ordinance 940. Not only do I think it was a good thing, I think it was a very wise move also. So thank you very much for that. And that's all. Unless you have questions for me, that's all.
Jeff, thank you for your leadership with the meeting this week with the state delegate. That certainly the history that you have with the city and the understanding of how to speak to elected officials really helped get that project explained and communicated well. Mr. President, we just have the fire report, and that concludes the staff departmental reports.
Thank you, Ms. Imholz. For the month of October, the total calls for the month were 536. 443 of those calls were on the EMS side, and 93 were on the fire side. 261 of those calls were in the city limits. 223 were just outside the city limits. The one statistic that always bugs me is the number of overlapping calls. 54% of the time when you call for a medic unit from the city of Westminster, either Reese or New Windsor or Pleasant Valley needed to come into town because both or all three of our ambulances were already deployed. And I believe that's my report, except for one thing. You can tell the FBI that they can enjoy her presentations, but they're not to recruit her. Absolutely, she's ours. Okay, thank you.
Things out loud.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I just want to say, I neglected earlier, the mayor is still not feeling as well as we would like, but she's on the mend. Mayor, did you have anything you wanted to add? Because we didn't get a chance to call on you very much this evening.
I mean, I'm good. Today was my first day back at work. I don't know, if that's anything to add. So it has been an incredibly long day. I will just say just one thing very quickly, not to open up a can of worms. I'm going to set my timer right now. I thoroughly enjoyed maybe the right word, but followed along carefully with the conversations about the pool. I think that there were comments from everyone that made very valid points. My thought is the pool is very much an asset to the community, much like all of you believe it is as well. But I really did appreciate the points brought forward by Councilman Cavacci, Councilman Hoff, about looking at the bid and community involvement. Two very important things. But I look forward possibly for 2 weeks. Hopefully we'll have a lot more information about that. We'll feel a little bit more comfortable where we are. But thank you. At 2 weeks, I'll be in person. I promise.
All right. Well, thank you, Mayor. We miss you. So it'll be nice to have you back. The final item on our agenda is citizen comments, when we invite the public to address the mayor and council on any issues that pertain to tonight's agenda or any other city issues. For citizens not attending the public meeting, we invite you to send us your comments or concerns via email at comments@westgov.com, which we did change to the longer email address. I'll have that next time. But the old one still works for right now.
It does.
All comments received by email will be shared with the mayor and council so that we'll be aware of anybody's concerns. The commenters should include their address and phone number with their comments when they email them in. Now, is there anyone with us tonight who wishes to be heard? And if so, please give us your name and address for the record. Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Harris.
Well,
Nice to see you again.
It's great to see you, Dr.
good to
Harris.
see all of my friends and new friends now. That's really, really nice. Well, I'm Dr. Harris, Darcel Harris at 66 Pennsylvania Avenue, Westminster, Maryland. Been there for a while. I just want to say to the police department, God bless you. Foot patrol, bicycle patrol, that other thing they ride on, and they're friendly and they're looking out for us. It's very different, and I thank you. So to add to what everybody else was saying about the police, very nice, thank you. The other thing I want to talk about is, don't forget Pennsylvania Avenue.
No, indeed.
Please do not. You know, my old neighbor's not here, Lady O. She's not here, so I'm coming in and standing up. Yeah, because that's what this is all about. On the back of this page. I know.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I remember. I'm not gonna handle it that way. I'm just very happy that y'all are very conscientious about the needs of the citizens of the city. I deal with a lot of the grassroots, a lot of the homeless. I'm not homeless, but my friends, a lot of them are homeless or whatever. So I see things from their perspective. And I just want to say, Pennsylvania Avenue, they got a lot of rapid housing. A lot of them haven't been able to adjust to being in a house yet. So we got to be patient with them. They're still walking around, sitting on the curb, instead of going in the house that they've been blessed to have through this government that we have set up. The other thing I wanted to say, I think somebody's dumping trash at 68 Pennsylvania Avenue. It's only a man and his wife and a baby and 3 people. And they don't pick up the trash. And what's happening is that we're starting to get rats and other vermins coming to eat the trash. And I would like somebody to look into that. And I'm not going to say anything bad about our trash people. Our trash people are good. There's something going on at that particular spot. I don't know what it is. But it's not the trash, it's not the sanitation, it's not public works or anything. It's somebody else's jumping, because they burnt I think the chief know, they burnt the couch I threw out. I've never had that happen before. And they burnt it twice. So I'm just asking, something needs to happen on Winter Street, because that's where the problems are. But other than that, it's pretty nice living in the city. I've come from other cities. I've been here 30 years now, and I never went back. So thank you very much. And you was president back then when I first came.
I don't think so. I was around, but I don't think I was president. But it's nice to see you, Dr. Harris. Thank you for coming out tonight. Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard this evening? All right, well, that concludes our agenda and the meeting. Our next regular meeting will be held on Monday, November 15th. And with that, without objection, we are adjourned.